second. Hello, are you there? Hello.
Hello.
Huh. Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
I'm over. I'm complete.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your informative and valuable talk. Thank you so much, sir. Now, this is the time for technical session 2. In this session, we have with us the Honorable Speaker, Dr. K. Narayan Rao, Assistant and Head, Department of Philosophy, Niranjan Government Women's College, ASCA. Let me start with the academic output of Dr. K. Narayan Rao. He has a teaching experience of more than 20 years in different government colleges of Odisha. He is a brilliant scholar and teacher in philosophy. Dr. Rao, at present working as an assistant professor and head, Niranjan Government Women's College, ASCA. Sir has done his MA and MPhil in philosophy from the University of Delhi. Then he did his doctoral research on the theme an analytic approach to the concept of reality from Sambalpur University. He joined in Odisha Educational Service in 1999 as a lecturer in GM College, Sambalpur. Before joining college, he served in Punjab National Bank as a bank officer for 1.5 years. Now, Dr. Rao is working as the head of Department of Philosophy, Niranjan Government Women's College, ASCA. Dr. Rao has already authored more than 15 books and 25 articles in different state and national 25 articles in state and national level journals. He is also a lifetime member of Indian Philosophy Congress and All Odisha Philosophy Association. Today he is going to focus on each man moral. With this, I would like to conclude giving the introductory speech about Dr. Rao and Dr. Rao to start speech. Sir, please start to talk. Sir.
Okay. Thank you for your
Please, sir.
Thank you for your nice. Thank you.
Okay.
Namaskar everybody. Respected Principal Madam, Remuna Degree College, Professor Jayanti Naik, convener of the webinar Mrs. Snatagrita Virsamanta Madam, IQAC coordinator of the college, co-speaker Dr. Patita Pavan Das, faculty in charge of the valedictory function of this webinar, and dear participants. I thank the organizing committee of the college for inviting me to speak in the webinar on man and morality, and accordingly I have chosen to speak under the title Is Man Moral? I repeat, I will be speaking on the title Is Man Moral? This question, is man moral, looks really very simple, but when we try to answer this, we find a lot of problem. This cannot be answered in a strict affirmation or denial. That is, we cannot answer this question in a strict yes or no. If this cannot be answered like this, then how to decide the moral status of a human being? Now, as your short question arises now, and what is being moral? Roughly speaking, our attitudes, our behavioral patterns, our actions, or say obeying certain rules, norms, or say making the right choices define whether we are moral or not. I don't say in a strict sense, at least in a rough sense. So, man is said to be moral if say he obeys the rules, he makes right choices, etc. And those who go away from this, those who deny making right choices, or those who do not make right choices, or those who disobey the rules, for them we say they are immoral in some sense. And having said this, I say that moral, or the morals, the norms, are purely man-made. So, what makes and what do we think makes a man moral? So, as I said, the ability on the part of an individual to make right choices, maybe make him moral, or say the ability on his part, whenever he makes an action, carries out action, he is able to know the consequences and he is prepared for the consequences, and maybe he understands the consequences as being good or bad. So that way we may say think of rating a man to be moral or immoral, or say the capacity on the part of a human being to make value judgments and living according to those values, not just making judgments, but also living with those judgments that also define as to whether a man is moral or not. But one thing that comes to my mind, the very seed of morality came into being when there is a transition from I to we. Man was purely selfish. He was concerned about his own living. So the foundation of ethics was laid when man thought of the people around him, his fellow beings. So the first transition from I to we is the foundation of morality. So when there is an expansion of the self from mere I to we, the foundation of morality was in a sense laid. So accordingly, the civilization advanced, we advanced. So we are in an age where we think we need to lead a moral life. Why? Maybe say to have a good social life, or to say to have a good relationship with everyone out there in the society, or say from a psychological angle, we might be thinking, if we carry on an action in a different manner that is not prescribed by the society, what others would think. That is always there in the back of our mind, what others think. From the psychological angle also, we are restricted to patterns. And again, maybe with fear of the social censure, if we carry on a certain act, maybe the society will not permit us to be there. Or say, sometimes, or if we are matured enough to understand ourselves, our conscience may not be allowing us to do something that is not defined by the society. Or say, we may be thinking of some divine punishment in some form if we carry on an action that is not permissible. So these are the things that serve as the background to see how the morality in man needs to be taken, or how, or say when is an action of an individual moral, You can say again, say if an individual carries on in action, as I said to you, the initial seed of morality was laid when man made a transition from I to we. And having said this, I say an act is moral if there is no appeal to self-interest. So the self-interest is sacrificed in favor of some sort of say social interest or the interest of the community. Or say you may think of having say a good motive. You are having a good motive in your action, in carrying on a certain action. So that also may define your moral nature. Or say you are carrying on an action that is accepted by all. I may be wrong if I say all, maybe nearly all. So, or say you have reasons or justifications for carrying on a certain act. Why do you carry? Why did you do so? Somebody asks. You have valid reasons to show that your action is not wrong. Or, as I said earlier too, that you are defined, you are guaranteed by your own conscience. Your conscience permits you to carry on that course of action. So this is how we can make a basic foundation of what morality is. Having a basic understanding of this, man tries to frame moral principles, norms, say rules pertaining to the various aspects of life. But what we find is he may practice some norms or principles that we call moral in a true sense, and some principles he may say he may be half-hearted in the practice of such principles, or say he may be say totally disgusted with those morals or principles. So we have different. So we frame morals, we frame certain norms, certain rules or principles that we call moral, and we are in a position, three different positions that we can be. Say, where in one position we are with the morals, in the second position we are half-hearted in accepting the morals, and the third sense we are disgusted with those morals. Now, the moral principles, as you see, they try to do something good for the individual or the society. But still, we fail, as I said, because maybe man is, even now, though we have made a transition to the society, but still, more or less, man is selfish. Self-considerations are given more primacy over others. And he gives less importance to the damage that occurs to others or to the society as a whole. So here lies the whole problem. Now today we are in an age where the survival of the fittest rules, and there is an utter competition among individuals for land, wealth, capital, and in this state of affairs, the practice of moral principles in the true sense is really difficult. And the life, as you see, has become more or less mechanical, and day by day the emotions are fading, and already we can see the emotions fading to give way to more of negatives in the society, if at all they give a lift to an individual. So the man is ready today to sacrifice the emotions in favor of getting something concrete for himself. So the emotion for the society is lost. Here lies the problem. But anyway, the emotions, the value are not totally out of scene. We have emotions, we have values. They're not totally out of scene. And now, a moralist, he tries to give a theoretical color to these emotions and takes these emotions to the power infinity. And there lies the problem. Because with these emotions of love, friendship, cooperation, understanding, and ideals are framed. And how long or in what way, or say how far we practice these ideals brings in problems. And there lies the problem with the practice, the true practice of a moral theory. Now you see, well, moral theories do help us to understand what sort of action is right or what sort of action is wrong, or say they may guide our living, but still there are people who don't have the theoretical ideal knowledge of the ideals, the norms, the principles, but still they lead a very moral life. They are compassionate, they are sympathetic, they have a concern for others, they love others. So what does this mean? This means that human being in his very nature has morality installed in him. Morality installed in him, I say. But because of our finite understanding of ourselves and the people around, and thinking of things in a more practical sense, or say in a more individualistic sense, rather than thinking in a holistic sense, we fall into issues and problems. Now, having said this, there are certain thinkers who say that moral theories have no bearing on the practical life. One can have a moral life if he has a concern, if he has a love for others. So here a question arises, whether moral theories have a bearing on practice, or practice is something, or say practice of moral principle is something which is already inbuilt in us. So here lies a big question. Now, in the earlier session, Dr. Patita Pawan Das was saying the bearing that the myths have on the human being. We have the myths, and in the Indian context, we are carried on by the myths. We have the myths. But while coming to practice, how far we practice those myths? How far we carry a sense of sacrifice? There, here lies the whole issue. This being so, the moralist, while framing the scenarios, should not be too much ideal. You need to see the practical side of the practice of the principles or norms. Or he needs to see the absurdities or the contradictions that emerge while making a true application of these moral principles. It is only then that a moral theory can find a success in the society. And one more thing that I see is moral principles, though we think of moral principles to be of a universal thought, But as we have different cultures, even within India, we practice, we adhere to different cultures. So, a universal set of rules or norms cannot be adhered to. So, there lies the problem. So, what I need to say is the moral principles need adjustment with time, with culture, with society. Otherwise, the moral theories will remain as mere fantasies in the minds of the theorists. So, one thing that let me tell you, if we go to the platform of science, the principles or the rules or more appropriately the laws in science are universal. They are applicable everywhere. But such sort of universal application cannot be thought of moral principles because of the diverse cultures that we live in. Hence, the morals will change from culture to culture, where we may have a framework for morals, and based on that framework, we can frame out theories or principles or norms fitting to a particular culture. That's how we can think of better moral theories. Otherwise, the morals would be far away from practice, like the myths, what Patit Pavan was pointing out, like the myths. Though we value those myths, but the practice becomes difficult. Now you see, man is actually, though a divine spark lies within him, yet in its external manifestation, he is carried on by various negative forces like anger, jealousy, hatred, etc. The greatest enemy of man is man. I say you. No one is the greatest enemy to man other than man himself. He wants to grow, he wants to develop, he wants to have all the benefits. But when he sees somebody else is growing side by side, he becomes envious, he becomes jealous, and a sort of hatredness grows in him. And I'm not saying this, I'm not exaggerating this. This is the general feature of man. And how far we are away from this, that defines your moral. Okay. When you see a tree grows and say side by side another tree grows, both the trees will grow independently and harmoniously. There is no problem, there is no opposition at all. But man sees the opposition everywhere with his counterpart. He wants to be at the top. He doesn't want anyone else there. There lies the problem. So you may ask, me also, how far do you practice this? I say, I'm not a sannyasi, I have not taken sannyasi, I'm there in the world, but I'm trying the best to be away from mere silly things. Somebody today in my WhatsApp has written me that I feel very bad that doctor is not written before your name. And he said, what is the difference between chief speaker and speaker? I replied, these are mere issues, minor issues. It doesn't make any sense. I'm called as a speaker and my work is to speak. It doesn't matter if somebody writes doctor or not, it will make me. So I have to deliver my duty and I should not be carried out by this external transmission. I have not marked that, but somebody has given the message. So that's how the problem is. If I take that as an issue, then the problem arises. So that's how we need to be refined. This is an example that I have given, and we need to take things like that. It is only then there can be a refinement in our lives. Now sometimes it may so happen there may be a model, a structured model, and somebody practices something contrary to the model, and the society may oppose. He may face stiff opposition of the society for practicing something that is taken by the society as immoral. But suppose say that practice say contributes to the society, the well-being of the society, and brings about some social good, then such sort of practice should also be brought into the framework of the moral theory. It is only then the moral theories that we have become acceptable. If you take them as stiff ideals, rigid ideals, then our moral system is not going to survive long. The moral theories, principles, they need revision every day, every moment. And while applying morals, we also need to be conscious about the circumstances, the situations, and accordingly we need to act. Suppose say we have a moral that we should speak the truth, but speaking the truth is good, but there may be dangers involved while speaking the truth. Suppose if you speak the truth, and in speaking the truth, some innocent life comes to danger or faces the danger, then it is always good either to be silent or to be away from the truth. And there lies the beauty of truth, I say. And this practice of not speaking the truth in such circumstances should be brought into the framework of the ideal of truth. It is only then truth will survive. If not that I am made to speak the truth, I will speak the truth always, that comes as the defeat for truth, and so also for other principles. So my point is, speak the truth, but see the circumstance. If you knew not to speak the truth in such a circumstance, keep away from the truth or be silent. If somebody's life is in danger, from your truth, well, you have spoken the truth, but somebody's life is lost. Innocent life is lost. So what is the utility in truth? What way you are moral in speaking the truth? You are immoral. You have taken a life of a person. So what I say is, we have theories, we have principles, we have norms, and those norms should always be open. They should not be closed. Number one. There should be revisions to the standards. Then only they can survive and go long. Any new pattern that we come across, they should be adjusted into the moral framework to make, and we should appropriately make the adjustments in the morals and the practice of morals. So, having the morals in mind, the knowledge of the morals in mind, we need to see the circumstances, whether such a model can be applied there or not. If applied, in what way, whether any modification is needed or not, that also we need to be very much conscious of. Okay, now, a moralist, or say a moral person, need to be intrinsic, that is, he should be asking his conscience every time whether he is doing the right thing, and he is also extrinsic in the way whether his action is benefiting others, whether his action is taking care of others or not. So in both the aspects, man has to see himself. The intrinsic aspect and the extrinsic aspect. So, the intrinsic aspect is defined by your own conscience and by your knowledge of the morals, and also the belief that the morals need to be appropriately applied, taking the circumstances into account. It is only then we can think of having right morals and right application of morals. Now, I see 4 standpoints from this. Now, somebody is moral and says he wants to do something good for the society. Now, but a sort of people, they lack the information. They want, you see, they want to do something good, but they lack proper information, or they lack the proper knowledge concerning the moral laws or the norms, and hence they fall into certain sort of problems. And second, there are people, they have the knowledge of the laws, but they don't understand the laws properly. They misinterpret the laws. So there lies also the problem. The third sort of people are those who have the knowledge of the laws, who know the laws, or say they understand the laws, but they fail in their practical aspect. That is, they don't know how to apply those laws in the real situations. They think of the laws in the ideal sense, not thinking of revisions, not thinking of, or say not knowing how to apply them in the real situations. These are the third sort of people. And fourthly, most important sort of people are those who have the knowledge of the laws, they have a proper understanding of the laws, and they also know how to apply the laws for the benefit of the society or for achieving a greater good. But they don't get the support and cooperation from the fellow beings around to implement those laws into practice. Here is the big issue, and that we are facing day in and day out. So here lies a big problem. Now, how far we can be away from this problem, and why this problem comes is because of this. Because we are carried by our selfish interest, as I said earlier. We are carried on by our own desires. We are carried by our own ego satisfaction. Ego satisfaction. Okay. Why you are selfish? Because once you say, there are people, once they assert something, even though they know they are wrong, they will try to justify their right. Even they don't, the conscience says, they also very well, they know that they are wrong, but still they want to justify them. They don't think of what will happen to others, what others will think. They don't take it from a psychological angle because they are so much involved in the selfish interest. And it is because of this that there are quarrels, there are fights, and most importantly, because of this sort of selfish interest, some genuine interest of the society or of others or the fellow beings are sacrificed and lost. And man, most of the time, plays immoral moral games. Sorry, immoral mind games. Immoral mind games. People might be saying, well, he's so smart man, so moral. But at the back, he will be playing an immoral mind game. And these are the people, very cunning, and they cannot be easily pointed out. So we need to be conscious about that. So this is the pattern, the structure of the society that we are in. As regarding the desires, man is full of desires. There is no end to desires. You see, satisfying his own desires and ends up his life. How can he think of the desires of others? Okay, so there again a problem. Let me take an instance, a recent instance again. Since I am a South Indian and we celebrate Makar Sankranti and we have good rest, my missus said, well, there is a showroom, Rodan Strange, new showroom that has been opened, and it's a big showroom and I want to have dress from there. Well, I said, it's good. Well, if you want there, well, let us go. And we had been to that showroom and she picked up 3 dresses. And I don't say they're a small amount, they're a big amount. I happily came back because, well, I have fulfilled somebody's desire. I was happy from inside. Well, I fulfilled a desire. But on the way back home, she complained, oh, I am mistaken. I took 3 dresses. I should have taken 1 dress, still costlier dress. Still costlier dress. I say, showed me all the 3 dresses. All the 3 were not cheap, they are priced high. And if you want one, let us go back and return the other 2. There was silence for about 1 kilometer or 2. And you know what might have happened. Well, nothing to disclose. So man is so much carried by his own ego, so by his own desire. There is no time to think of the desires of others, the interests of that. So there the problem is. And as I say, he is carried by his ego sense. And this ego sense is the great source of mistakes, sins, crimes, and brings in not only problems for the society, it brings problems for himself also, but man is not understanding. So there is a need today, there is a need to come out of our individual interests, our selfish interests, our sense of ego feeling, our desires, to be expansive in ourselves. We need a sort of expansion in ourselves so as to enable the self to expand to the society. So we have a very important theory in ethics. I remember during the graduation days, the expansion of the self theory. You see, we have the 4 ashramas, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, and Vanaprastha and Sannyasi. The expansion of the self theory fits there. In the Brahmacharya, what you are concerned about, your own understanding, your own learning, you are concerned about that. So your self is limited to your own self, your own knowledge increase. You are concerned about your own knowledge, enrichment of your own knowledge. So when we come to the Grihastha life, the self expands and the self thinks about the members of the family. The members, you think of your mother, your father, the members of the family, much concerned about the family, the Grihastha ashrama. Then there is the expansion of the self to the Vanaprastha ashrama, where the man sacrifices his family and thinks of a greater community, the interests of the society. And then still there is an expansion where the man becomes a sannyasi and thinks of the universal well-being. And this is the transition of ourselves. And where we stand in this transition, we know better. So, having said all this, let me tell you that think of a sannyasi, or think of a morally refined man, or think of the ideals that we have. Now let me come up with certain ideals and see what is our position. Now say, can't we go with these ideals? Is the question mark before I speak out the ideals. If at all I am not doing any good to others, at least I should not harm them. Okay. I am not doing any good to others. If at all I am not doing any good to others, why should I harm others? Number 1. Number 2, if we are not prepared to do something for our own self, we should also be away from doing the same for others. Suppose something produces harm to you, something produces pain in you, think the same harm, same pain will also be there in others. Are we thinking about that? Number 3. The thing is, before doing an action, think twice, thrice, whether that action hurts anybody, whether it will hurt anybody. Number 4, try to know yourself, understand yourself, and accordingly adjust yourself to the system, so that you produce less harm and greater good. I'm not saying you are a Mahatma, go be a Mahatma. The best possible way, try to be with others. Now, we should try to respect others. We want others to respect us, don't we? We want others to respect us. But at the same time, we need to learn that we need to respect others. Then, whatever we are given, maybe big sum or less sum or whatever status you are going, whatever stage you are there, always try to be in cooperation with others. Try to find yourself with little or no opposition with others. Try to be fair with others, and I say you, those who are fair with others, nothing wrong will ever happen to them. I say you this. Well, you may ask whether there is a guarantee to this. Well, there is no guarantee, no certificate can be given to that, but you can give a certificate to yourself that I have done something right. You can give a certificate to yourself that I have done something wrong. If you have done right, you will have a very good sleep. If you have done something wrong and you know that, and there is a tussle between your mind and your conscience, you cannot sleep. Okay. Now, more importantly, you should try to love everybody and think of long-range utility standards. The standards that have both length as well as breadth. Length in the application and depth in the application. Okay. They have the depth in the application standards. Then we should have general law standards or the general laws of standards, and these standards need to be always subject to modification or they should be open. And also we need to frame standards that are less severe. And always treat individuals as ends and treat them with respect, and never take any individual as a means to your own achievement. Treat individuals as ends. And the last, let me tell you, everybody on this planet seeks happiness for others. He seeks happiness ultimately. Whether we acquire wealth, whether we acquire knowledge, or whether we acquire something other, at the end of all this is happiness. And everybody wants to be happy. And while being happy, we should be concerned about the happiness of others. Here comes to my mind a famous assertion by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. He said, it is not important how happy you are. It is not important how happy you are. It is very important how many are happy because of you. Everybody wants to be happy, but do you want others to be happy? or how much you want others to be happy, even at the cost of your own happiness. Now, if others' happiness, if our concern for others' happiness becomes our aim and objective, we hope not only to make others happy, but in the process, I believe that will turn to be moral. Because after all, the end of everything is happiness. Even the end of sorrow is happiness. So the end of every activity is happiness. So are you able to make others happy? If you are, and if you are on the route to make others happy, I say you, in the process, how can you remain unhappy? Well, I say you, when at the cost of your happiness, if you are serving others, if you are wanting others to be happy, I say you, at least you will be growing moral. Now, you may ask, how to make others happy? You see, well, this may be a question, how to make others happy? You see, for this, you don't have to do a very big thing. Try to be human. Carry on the acts of love, the acts of caring, sharing. Have a sense of charity. Have compassion for others. Respect others. Always be in the service of others. Be kind to others. And most importantly, discipline your own self. If you are able to do this, there can be happiness in the world. And in the process, I say you, I repeat, you can turn inwards and you see that in others' happiness, ultimately, I say, I cannot guarantee whether you will be happy or not, but at least I will say, your conscience will say that you have done a great job. Now, these acts of service, love, charity, compassion give us enough opportunities to rise above the ordinary ways of living, to live or say to lead a life of purity and discipline. In such a life of purity, there can be no thought, no speech or action that goes immoral. Everything then turns out to be moral. Can't we lead such a life? This is a question to all of us. Can't we lead such a life? A sequel to this question is that we are back again to the original question: is man moral? So the entire discussion again has landed us in the original question: is man moral? It is now for all of us to decide and answer. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your eye-opening talk on today's webinar topic. Now, I would like to invite questions on the webinar topic from the participants. In the chat box, there is one question. One of the participants, there is a question named Rinki Mahalik. And the question is, does culture is a universal or individual concept? Because our thoughts vary from person to person. Is my culture different from you? Then what about Western culture and the Indian culture? Because Indian and Western is not an individual concept, that is a universal concept. Please explain it. I think this question is to Pawan sir.
Yes, I understand. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you, Rinki, for this wonderful question. Yeah, as I said, your culture is based on a thought. That is very important, isn't it? The whole idea I was disseminating through my lecture is that your culture is based on a thought. Now, what is the nature of that? That is important. That thought is very important. Okay, and that thought is transmitted through a story or directly it comes to us. For example, I was talking about democracy. We are now talking about democratic culture, and it is a universal culture because each and every country of this world believes in that our country should be democratic. And if one country doesn't practice that democratic culture, then we have a big boss, America, it will make him practice, right? Like Iraq. So in Iraq, people said that we don't want democracy, we want monarchy, right? And therefore, America comes in and says you have to believe in democracy because democracy is a better story, and you have to practice it. That is how it happens. So democratic culture, now we are talking about democratic culture, right? So democratic culture is a universal culture. Every country is practicing that. So what is important is this thought behind your culture, isn't it? Now what is the nature of that thought? That is very important. And I would say thought is universal in nature. Someone said that all rational people believe or think equally. All rational people think equally. So stunningly, I also give this example to my students in my classroom. Look, if you find out, if you read simultaneously Greek philosophy and ancient Indian philosophy. You think about Vaisheshika and they are Democritus. In Greek philosophy we have a philosopher called Democritus who talks about atomic theory. And here we have Vaisheshika, Maharshi Karnada, who talks about also atomic theory. Right? And Karnada believes that this world is made of 5 bhutals, pancha bhutals. And Democritus also in Greece, he was also believing in that way. How did they know? Was it internet? Today, I can communicate my ideas with a person in America, in Europe, through internet. You just imagine 2000 years back, these two people, one was residing in Greece, another was staying in a forest in India, but believing in the same thing. How is it possible? And that shows that if you think rationally, deeply, philosophically, then every one of us believes or thinks in the same way. So that is what. So our thought is universal because all rational people believe equally. And if our culture is based on that rational thinking, then our culture will automatically become universal. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. What happens? Some set of people think in a story, some other set of people think in a different story. And based on that story, they start practicing a culture. And therefore cultures vary. Otherwise should not vary. If the cultures are dependent on rational thinking, then everyone has to practice same kind of culture. Okay, so I should say that if we can drag out or dig out that thinking behind culture, then we can find out that where is the problem, because we can find out that thought, that philosophy. I was saying that there is a deep philosophical thought behind every culture. Now we have to find out what is that philosophical thought behind a particular culture. We can find out, and then we can find out what are the problems in that philosophical field. Then we can create a universal culture. So there will be no Western, Indian, nothing. So one culture. Now today we can create at least partially, that is called democratic culture. Most of the people in the world, they believe in that culture. Okay. So I should say like that. So culture is a universal thing. But some kind of manipulations have made it, particular. I think I should start. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your clarification. One more question to you, sir.
Yes.
Why it is from Harshita Swai? Why culture is so important? Why is it necessary to follow the rules and regulations of culture? Why our hands are tied in between the rules and regulations of culture?
Yeah. Thank you. The idea is that, look, human life cannot grow, cannot develop without a particular kind of aim or goal, right? It's just like, a boat roaming around in the sea without any destination. So you have to have an ideal in your life. Have to. Otherwise your life will rot. Completely, rot. Because you will not have any destination, you will not work, you will not do, you will not make hard labor, and you will not achieve anything, because you don't have to achieve anything, right? So every one of us has a dream, has to achieve something, right? That is the human nature. Human nature is that we have to achieve something. We always dream to achieve something. Now, but what is that something? Suppose I started dreaming that I will be the number one thief, like Hrithik Roshan. So my ideal is this. I want to be the smartest thief in this world. That is a destination, and accordingly I will work. But that destination will destroy me. That dream will destroy me. I will rot in the jails. So what is your goal in your life? That is important, very important. And cultures actually create those goals for us, set goals for us. That this is an ideal goal to cherish, this is an ideal goal to achieve, and you can try. Now, you are free. I said no. I could understand Harshita's concern that sometimes some cultures become so draconian, authoritative, without explaining why that goal should be cherished by everyone. They start dictating you that you do it because we said it, without explanation. Right? And there, sometimes what we do, we lose our interest doing that. So it's up to you to dig out why that culture has made that rule. What is the reason behind that rule described by a particular culture? You dig out that. And if your reason supports that reason, then you follow it. Otherwise you don't follow it. And by the process your culture might discard you, sometimes your culture might attack on you, but don't worry. what happens is that we have to lead an ideal life, for my life, for others' life. And for that, we need a goal, we need an ideal. And our cultures actually give us a ready-made ideal. Now it's our choice. Before practicing any particular kind of culture, what we have to do is that we have to analyze that what is that culture, what are the reasons behind that culture, what are the thoughts behind those rules and regulations. And after that we have to subscribe to that. But normally we don't do that, we don't have time, no? What do? We start either accepting culture blindly or we start scolding our culture blindly. Because we think that culture is by nature notorious, very bad. It's not like that. There are many good things in a culture. Many good things. So we should be very open and we have to find out why did a particular kind of rule. Now why was that particular kind of rule described in that culture? If you can find that, love it. Then it's open to you whether you will accept that or you will not accept that. But you do it. And there is a necessity for doing it, because if you don't do it, then what will happen? That we will simply follow a culture without any logic, and after that we will repent. In our life we will not achieve anything. We will repent, why did I do all these things? There are many people, even in my village, they follow our culture without thinking, without understanding why they are doing it. Throughout their life they do it. All the worship, all the rituals, everything, they do it. But what they achieve out of it? Nothing. And after that they repent. And because they didn't find anything, therefore some of the people who went to town, they started scolding our culture without thinking why that culture is bad or good. So both ways you are doing wrong thing. What do we have to do? We have to find out what is the philosophy behind the culture, and then only we will accept or we will reject. Thank you, Harshita.
Hello sir, my name is Tarun.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, Tarun. Yeah.
Yes sir, I have 2 questions for you and 3 questions for K.O. Narayan sir.
Perfect.
ओके सर, माय फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन है, जैसे कि आपने कहा कि कृष्णा और राम का स्टोरी ये सब एक मिथ है, और तो जिन्होंने माइथोलॉजिकल बुक्स जिन लोगों ने लिखा, तो क्या उन्होंने झूठ लिखा या फिर सच लिखा, या फिर अगर झूठ लिखा तो फिर वो मोरली राइट या फिर रॉन्ग कहे जाएंगे?
ओके, फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन. Will you say the second question or I should answer this first?
No sir, kindly answer this first one, then I should.
Okay.
Yes sir.
So first thing I should clarify that I don't know whether this is a myth or not. I said, look, whether Ram existed or Krishna existed or they don't exist, they didn't exist, or they wrote all false, that is not important for us. That is what I'm concerned about. That is not important. Even though Krishna existed, how does it matter to me? Krishna existed. Now Krishna existed. How does it matter to me? Ram existed now. How does it matter to me? Now the idea is, Ram is not important or Krishna is not important for me. What Ram does in his life or Krishna does in his life, that we have to examine. Why? Because I want to do something in my life. So I have 2 options now. Just like when I go to buy a shirt, what I have to do? I have to find out what is the fabric, what is its quality. Then only I will buy it, because I need it. Similarly, I need some values in my life, and I have 2 options. One is Ram and another is Krishna. Now Ram stands for certain kind of actions and Krishna stands for some other kind of actions. Now I have to choose between these 2. Whether they existed, they don't exist, we should not enter to that. Even they existed. What I have to do? Because they existed, I have to follow him? No. Even though he is Ram, I should not follow him. Even though he is Krishna, I should not follow him. Without examining what they did in their life is good or bad. That is my concern. Okay. And what our forefathers did, for me, what they did is that if I tell you that look, whatever happens, you tell the truth. For this, even though you have to sacrifice your wife, doesn't matter. You sacrifice your parents, doesn't matter. Because this is morality. Will you accept it?
नो सर, लेकिन जो राम ने जो किया, तो उनका अलग धर्म था ना, वो राजधर्म के लिए उन्होंने किया, तो फिर
whatever might be. But if I say that moral principles are universal, moral principles are true, this, that, you will not accept. But if I tell this in a story form, you will accept it. Because that is very attractive, isn't it? So our forefathers might have done that. I said this. Okay?
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Now I would like to request to Miss Runu Sahu, Assistant and Head, Department of Zoology, Remuna Degree College, to offer vote of thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, madam. A very good afternoon to one and all. So, thank you, madam, for giving me opportunity to deliver vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to propose hearty vote of thanks to Dr. Patitapaban Das, Assistant Professor, Department of Philosophy, Ravenshaw University, Cuttack, for making excellent presentation and making this webinar interesting and meaningful. Thank you, sir. You have really guided us with your valuable talk. I thank Dr. K. Om Narayan Rao, Assistant Professor, Department of Philosophy, Nirhan Government Women's College, Aska, Ganjam, for his dynamic presentation and for his perfect logistical support and guidance he has extended to all of us in this webinar. I express my sincere thanks and deep sense of gratitude to our principal, Mrs. Jayanti Naik, Remuna Degree College, for her able guidance and her support to organize this webinar in our college. I also extend my thanks to all the participants across the nation for their enormous cooperation and sparing their valuable time to become a part of this webinar. Thank you to all. Lastly, I will also express my gratitude to Mrs. Dheer Samanta, Assistant Professor and Head, Department of Philosophy, Remuna Degree College, for her constant support and encouragement in making this webinar a grand success. Lastly, I heartily thank all the participants, organizing members, dignitaries, supporting members, media channels of this webinar. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for your vote of thanks. Today's webinar is over, and the feedback link will be available in the WhatsApp group. And happy New Year to all the participants in advance.